People in the valley used to laugh at him, not because he was cruel, not because he was strange, but because to them he looked useless. While others rushed through life like they were being chased, he moved slowly. While others argued, he listened. While others fought the world, he seemed to let the world pass through him. His name was Shen, and the villagers called him the man who did nothing.
Rain came in thin sheets that morning, not the kind that waters fields, the kind that makes the river rise quietly, like an animal lifting its back. Shen stood at the riverbank without an umbrella. His robe darkened. Water ran from his sleeves. His face didn't move. Across the bend, the current looked calm, but the surface carried small warnings, twigs spinning where water should run straight, foam gathering where foam shouldn't gather, the sound of the river pulling at reeds like a breath held too long. Wei arrived soaked and uneasy. "Uncle," he said, "something is coming." Shen didn't turn. He watched a leaf drift downstream, then disappear beneath the gray. Wei swallowed. "They say a warlord is coming by river." Boats, many. A dull horn sounded far away, then another. The rain swallowed it, but not enough. Wei's voice dropped. "His name is Lord Yang. They say he burns one village so the next village surrenders faster." Shen's eyes stayed on the water. Wei waited for comfort. Shen only asked, flat and practical, "Is the rainy season kind to boats?" Wei blinked. "It raises the water," Wei said. "It makes the current stronger." Shen nodded once, as if he'd been waiting for only that. Then the village bell rang. Not the prayer bell, the warning bell. They returned through wet streets. People were already gathering in the square. Han was there, sleeves tied, face pale, jaw tight. Not the anger of a fighter, the fear of a man responsible for too many lives. A messenger stood under a dripping awning. He wore lacquered armor, clean despite the rain. Behind him, on the river, dark shapes moved, boats like long knives sliding on water. The messenger spoke loud enough for everyone. "Lord Yang sends mercy." A few villagers flinched at the word. "In 3 days," the messenger said, "our full force arrives. 100 oars, fire arrows, men who do not get tired." He smiled as if reciting a purchase order. "Before we arrive, you will prepare tribute." He began counting on his fingers. "Silver, rice, jewelry, and 10 young men to row." A murmur spread, sharp, sick. "And if you refuse," he added, "we burn this valley until it becomes smoke." Silence fell. A child started crying. A mother covered his mouth too late. Han stepped forward, then stopped. His hands hovered at his sides like he wanted them to become weapons. His voice came out tight. "We can pay," Han said. "We can—" He looked at the villagers, at children, at old men, at roofs made of dry wood under wet weather. "We can survive," Han whispered, "if we give him what he wants." Wei's stomach tightened. Han, who always fought, was already surrendering. The messenger's eyes slid over Han, satisfied. "Wise choice," he said. Then a calm voice cut through the rain. "No." Everyone turned. Shen stepped forward, not loudly, not theatrically, just certain. Han snapped his head toward him. "Shen," Han hissed, low, urgent, "don't provoke him." Shen didn't look at Han. He looked at the messenger. "You come with threats, so you must be hungry." The messenger's smile twitched. Shen continued, calm as stone. "Tell Lord Yang," Shen said, "we will not feed his greed. We will not train our children to kneel." The crowd inhaled like one body. Han stepped closer, voice shaking. "You want us to die for pride?" he whispered. "This is not a proverb. This is fire." Shen finally looked at Han. 3 days, Shen said softly. "That is not mercy. That is time." Han's eyes flickered. Shen turned back to the messenger. "Tell him this," Shen said. "If he wants tribute, he may come for it. But he will come when I invite him." The messenger stared, almost laughing. "You invite him?" he scoffed. "Who are you?" Shen didn't blink. "A man who lives on this river," he said, "and knows when it bites." The messenger's smile hardened. "You are gambling with a village," he said. Shen's answer was immediate. "No," Shen said, "I am gambling with his greed." The messenger's gaze sharpened. Shen leaned in just enough to make the words land. "Lord Yang loves cheap victories," Shen said, "so I will sell him one." The messenger's eyes narrowed. "Speak." Shen pointed toward the river. "On the 3rd day," Shen said, "come at the hour of the full tide, when the river is high, when your boats feel like dragons." He paused, tiny, deliberate. "We will place the tribute at the reed bend, where the channel narrows, so your men don't need to march, they only need to row." Han's face tightened. Wei understood the danger of that sentence. It sounded easy. The messenger smiled again. "Very well," he said. "Lord Yang will enjoy collecting from a village that talks too much." He turned to leave. Han grabbed Shen's sleeve as soon as the messenger was out of earshot. "Are you insane?" Han hissed. "You just told him the best time to attack." Shen looked at Han's hand on his sleeve. Not angry, not offended, just unmoved. "You heard attack," Shen said. "I said row." Han's breath shook. "We don't have an army," Han whispered. "We have farmers." Shen nodded once. "And a river," he said. Han's voice cracked. "Rivers don't stop fire arrows." Shen's gaze went to the sky, to the rain, to the swollen water. "Fire arrows hate wet wood, and wet men, and wet fear." Han stared like he wanted to argue but couldn't find the words. Shen didn't soften. "I will not buy peace with your spine," he said. "I will not teach them that fear is expensive and still cheaper than dignity." Han swallowed. "So what do we do?" Shen turned. "Bring me a map," he said. That night, no one sharpened spears. They spread a rough village map on the floor of the storehouse. Ink lines, river curve, the narrow throat of the channel, the reed bend, the bank where boats must pass to reach the square. Lantern light trembled on the paper. Han stared at it, jaw tight, haunted. Shen placed a small stone on the map, at the narrow bend. "Here," he said. Wei leaned in. Han frowned. "That's far from the village." Shen nodded. "Exactly," he said. "If the river eats him close to our homes, he burns us out of shame. If the river bites him far away, he retreats with less loss of face." Han's eyes narrowed. Shen took a piece of charcoal and drew short marks across the channel. "Bamboo stakes," Shen said. "Not everywhere, only where the current pushes boats offline." He drew 2 lines. "One row here," he said. "Another row here, like teeth behind water." Wei felt a chill. Han pointed. "At high tide he won't see them." Shen nodded. "And at high tide," Shen said, "his boats will be heavy with confidence." Han exhaled. "So we place the bamboo, then wait." Shen corrected him. "No," he said. "We place the bamboo, then we make him want to come fast." Han blinked. "Why?" Shen's eyes went to Han. "Because patience is armor, and greedy men hate armor." For 3 days, the village moved in quiet discipline. Not panic, not chaos. Work. They didn't cut any bamboo. They took the oldest stalks, thick, dense, stubborn. Han chose them himself, knocking each one with his knuckle, listening for the hard sound. In the storehouse, men sat in a circle with knives and whetstones. No war cries, just the rasp of steel. They shaved each stake into a long, cruel point, not a spear tip meant for flesh, but a chisel tip meant for wood. Then they burned the tips in fire until they darkened and quenched them in river water. The point became harder, the surface became slick. Shen watched once, then drew a map in the mud beside the river. 2 marks, 1 word. Low, high. He pointed at the river like it was a breathing animal. At low tide, Shen said, the river shows its ribs. At high tide, he said, the river hides its teeth. Han frowned. So when do we plant them? Shen didn't look up. When the river is honest, he said. That night they waited for the tide to fall. Rain covered the world in a soft war. The water pulled back, inch by inch, revealing slick stones, dark mud, and the shallow spine of the channel. When the river finally dropped enough to expose the sandbar bends, Shen raised his hand. Now! Men carried the sharpened bundles upstream. They waded in by rope, chest deep at first, then thigh deep as the water fell. Lanterns were covered so the light would not travel, only dim glows under sleeves. They drove each stake down with heavy stones, deep into the riverbed, until only the sharpened mouths remained just below the surface line. Shen's rule was simple. Not straight, he said, angled. He drew small triangles on the map, leaning with the current. Straight stakes stop boats, Shen said. Angled stakes open them. So they set the bamboo like teeth that bite only when the river pushes a hull sideways, in rows across the path where a confident boat would drift, and with gaps only locals could thread. Before they left, Shen had them tie reed bundles downstream as silent markers, not visible from far, only enough to guide a villager who knew where to look. And they planted the field far enough from the village that when the warlord was bitten, he could retreat without having to burn the village to save his pride. They did it far enough from the village that screams wouldn't reach the square. Close enough that the warlord's boats would still be committed when the trap revealed itself. Han watched with a tight face. Sometimes he looked at Shen like he hated him for being right. Sometimes he looked at Shen like he needed him to be right. Wei felt the tension between them like a rope pulled too tight. On the second night, Han cornered Shen in the storehouse. "What if he lands and marches anyway?" Han demanded. "What if he burns us because we embarrassed him?" Shen's voice stayed level. "Then we run," he said. Han froze. "You said—" Shen looked at him. "I said we don't kneel," Shen said. "I didn't say we die for theater." Han's mouth opened, then closed. Shen continued. "I am not brave," he said. "I am not proud." He tapped the map. "I am careful," he said, "and he is greedy. That is enough." On the third day, the rain softened. Not gone, just quieter. The river swelled. The tide climbed. The surface looked smooth, almost gentle. And that was the lie. Lord Yang's boats appeared like a moving wall. Rowers in lines, armor under cloaks, flags wet and heavy, drums beating slow, confident rhythms. Lord Yang stood on the lead boat beneath a dark canopy. He didn't look furious, he looked efficient, like a man arriving to collect what's overdue. Han stood on the bank, hands clenched, pale. Wei's breath felt small. Shen stood beside them, still as a post. Lord Yang called out. "So," he said, voice carrying over water. "This is the village with the famous old man." His eyes slid to Shen. "You offered me a cheap victory," he said. "I came to buy it." Shen bowed slightly. Not submission, not defiance, just acknowledgement. "The tide is high," Shen said, "so your boats won't scrape." Lord Yang smiled. "Good," he said. "Forward." The boats surged. Water slapped wood. Oars bit the current. For a moment, it truly looked like an easy harvest. Then the river spoke. Not with thunder, with one wrong drift. The current pulled the lead boat half a width offline, just enough. The hull caught something unseen, a hard, ugly scrape. The boat lurched. Men shouted. A second boat bumped into it, trying to avoid. Its hull scraped too. Then a third. Then the river, patient, merciless, began to stack their confidence into chaos. Wood cracked. Not an explosion, a splitting. The sound of something expensive becoming useless. One boat took on water, another turned sideways, oars tangled, rowers fell into the river, the formation broke, and once a river army loses formation, it becomes a crowd. Lord Yang's face didn't show fear, it showed calculation. He looked at the damaged hull, he looked at the narrow channel, he looked at the water climbing higher, turning retreat into its own cost. Then he looked toward the village bank. Mud, simple houses, no walls, no treasure worth a real campaign. He watched two more boats scrape and shudder. He watched men struggling to keep oars from snapping. His eyes narrowed, not at Shen, at the numbers in his head. Repair cost, manpower loss, time lost, reputation risk, all measured against a few bags of rice, a few pieces of silver, a village too small to be worth bleeding for. His jaw tightened. He raised a hand. The drums faltered. He spoke coldly to his captain, like canceling an investment. "The price is too high," he said. "Leave." The captain blinked. "My lord!" Lord Yang's eyes cut him. "Leave," he repeated. The drums changed rhythm. Not triumph, exit. The boats limped back the way they came, not defeated by soldiers, defeated by a river, and a man who made the river the accountant. The village didn't cheer. There was no victory feast, just people exhaling air they didn't realize they'd been holding. Han's shoulders dropped. His fear had nowhere to stand now. He looked at Shen like he wanted to hate him, but couldn't. We whispered, almost in disbelief, "We didn't fight." Shen watched the river as if it had always been the teacher. "We defended," he said. Han stepped closer, voice rough. "You knew he wouldn't fight on foot," Han said. "How?" Shen's gaze stayed calm. "Because he didn't come for honor," Shen said. "He came for profit." Han swallowed. "And you didn't beat him." Shen nodded once. "I didn't beat him," he agreed. He looked at Han, then at the river. "I made his best move unprofitable." We felt the truth settle in him, heavy and clean. Shen turned back toward the rain and the reeds, and he spoke the final line softly, as if speaking to the river itself. "In war, people think winning means breaking the enemy," Shen said. He paused. "In strategy, winning means removing the enemy's cheap choices." Another pause. "You don't defeat a warlord by being stronger than his army. You defeat him by making his greed too expensive to feed."
What Shen did wasn't a trap, it was strategy. In game theory, every threat is a calculation, reward versus cost. Before Shen acted, Lord Yang's math was simple. Attack the village, gain valuables. Cost is low. A few boats, a few arrows. So the attack is profitable. And when an attack is profitable, a warlord doesn't need hatred. He only needs arithmetic. Shen didn't try to outmuscle him. He did something smarter. He changed the equation. He turned the river into a hidden cost. So when the boats cracked, Lord Yang didn't feel fear, he felt loss. And this is rational choice theory. A rational predator chooses the option that maximizes his benefit. A hero might fight for honor even when it's costly, but a greedy warlord doesn't fight battles that lose money. He doesn't rage, he cuts losses, he leaves. That's the first lesson. You don't always win by becoming stronger. Sometimes you win by making the enemy's best move no longer worth it. Now the second lesson, asymmetric information. That means one side knows something the other doesn't. Shen knew the river's truth. He knew where the water hides its shallows. He knew when the tide turns. He knew where teeth can be planted without being seen. Lord Yang didn't. And Shen used that hidden information like a weapon. He didn't deceive with words. He deceived with timing. Come at high tide. It sounded like surrender, but it was a hand pulling the enemy onto a board where the pieces were already placed. That is why Shen wins without a sword. He didn't defeat an army. He defeated information. And this is also Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu never said, be braver. He said, choose the battlefield, use terrain. Make the enemy move first, pull them into your conditions. And win without a costly fight. The highest skill is to subdue without battle. Shen used the river as his battlefield. He made the warlord commit first, and he made the price of violence too high to pay. So here's the modern mirror. If you're trapped with something that feels too big, a toxic competitor, a manipulative person, a system you can't overpower, don't ask, how do I fight harder? Ask what Shen asked, how do I change the game? Because when the rules change, even the strongest enemy becomes uneconomical. And when an enemy is rational, they don't die. They don't even apologize. They simply walk away.